Welcome to the Lead to Win podcast, the podcast where we explore strategies, mindsets, and stories behind successful leadership and personal development. I'm your host, Bo Bergen. Let's do it. Man, we have a good one today. I'm pumped up for this one as I welcome Noah Galloway to the show. Sergeant Noah Galloway, a Birmingham, Alabama native, is the personification of valor and resilience. A Purple Heart recipient, double amputee, he decided to join the military as a result of the September 11th terror attacks. Noah's incredible journey to mental and physical wellness is one that he shares in his memoir titled Living with No Excuses, the Remarkable Rebirth of an American Soldier. Those words, no excuses, became Noah's mantra as he rose out of a post-traumatic depression via his reinvigorating passion for fitness. His victories at what one would expect him to see as impossible competition and obstacle races would find Noah gaining a national spotlight. He became the first veteran and amputee to be featured on the cover of Men's Health magazine, earning their Ultimate Guy title in 2014, landing him on The Ellen Show. Noah also became a finalist on the hit ABC show Dancing with the Stars and would win the debut season of Fox's American Grit. As a result of the honorable position he gained with a national platform, Noah wanted to give back. So he launched the No Excuses Charitable Fund, which raises money and awareness for organizations that support causes which mean the most to Noah. Now, as a fitness enthusiast and motivational public speaker, Noah shares his story to encourage audiences and his fans to embrace the no excuses lifestyle on their way to an enhanced mental and physical wellness. Noah, first off, thanks for your service and welcome, and thanks for coming on today.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
I'm really, before we get started on the questions here, my wife is a huge Dancing with the Stars fan. And, I'm sure you get asked about that period of your life a lot, but, who was your favorite cast member or whoever was on the show? Who was your favorite? Who was the coolest person?
Well, it was interesting. I'd never seen the show before. I never watched it prior, and I haven't watched it since. But I did appreciate the show when I was on it. You really get to see, it tells the story of people, these celebrities that you've heard of. And then you have new people like me that come in. But I was on with Patti LaBelle, Suzanne Summers, Robert Hirschback from Shark Tank. He and I became really close. We talk all the time still. And then on the show, oh my God, from Sharna Burgess, my dance partner, Tom was the host, and then you had, all those dancers, and even Dina Katz, executive producer. I still talk to people that did hair and makeup, wardrobe. I stay in contact with all of them because when I got there, they told me that they're a family. And I started to feel that. And it's because it's part of ABC. It's all part of that same thing. And it was truly an incredible experience to be there. And there's just random celebrities walking around like it's no big deal. So it's an interesting place to be for someone like me from Alabama.
Yeah. How quickly did, I assume you didn't have any prior dance experience, but how hard was it to pick it up and, do as well as you did?
It was horrible, and I think I did horrible. I'm not impressed with anything I've ever done. But it was motivating. People liked it, so they voted for me. But no dance experience at all. When I got there, so when I was on their 20th season, and they said that every season it gets leaked who's going to be on the season. And that season I was on, they were very tight-lipped, nothing leaked out. Well, they didn't know me, so I was the last person they brought on. So prior to the first week of dancing live on air in front of, I don't know, like how many million people, I had 2 weeks to prepare. And I was like, really? The guy missing an arm and a leg, you give 2 weeks, everyone else had like a month? But, it didn't matter because I didn't know what I was doing. But my strength actually played in a very valuable role in our dancing. Sharna Burgess, my dance partner, realized quickly that I was strong, and I have worked functional fitness. And because I actually told her, I can pick you up over my head. I'm going to treat you like I would a kettlebell. And I did it. You know what I mean? And so that paid off in the long run.
Yeah. That's awesome.
But I've had people since say, "Oh, so now you know how to dance." I'm like, "No, I don't know how to dance at all."
Well, it was definitely. I actually remember it too. It was very inspiring, and it was cool how they encaptured your story and motivated a lot of people.
It
But
was, before we move on, I'm sorry, Bo.
no, you're
That
good.
one other thing about Dance with the Stars, I turned it down. I turned down Survivor, another show, because my kids were real young. And when Dance with the Stars called, I'd never seen it. So it was easy for me to say, no, I can't do it. And they sent the dancer to Birmingham. And this is where we rehearsed all week and flew back and forth to LA for the live show.
That's nice. Yeah, especially with two or however many young kids you had at that time.
Yeah, yeah, no, they just keep happening. Now I've got more.
Right. Well, that happens. So obviously you have quite the journey. I didn't want to mention too much of it in your bio because I wanted you to be able to tell it. It's one that's inspired so many people around the world. Kind of walk me through your story. You can start wherever you want, but how have you gotten to where you are today?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I grew up here in Birmingham, Alabama, and I was in college when 9/11 happened, and I never went back to class after that. My uncle's a Vietnam veteran. He always told me to go airborne infantry in the military. So when that happened, boom, that's what I did. And I ended up going to basic training and jump school, then got orders to be with the 101st Screaming Eagles out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And that was the beginning. And then I trained and prepped and then was in the invasion of Iraq in '03. And politics of the war doesn't matter. I enjoyed wearing the uniform. I loved doing my job and the men I worked with in the infantry. So I decided that was a career and I reenlisted in Iraq. And my second deployment, we were in the Triangle of Death and I hit a tripwire and an ID went off and I woke up 6 days later on Christmas Day in Walter Reed Army Medical Center in DC. And it was all news to me that I lost my left arm above the elbow, my left leg above the knee, my jaw was shattered, so my mouth was wired shut, injuries to my right hand, and my right leg was all torn up. They didn't think I'd ever have feeling in it again. So I woke up to a lot. And I'm not going to come on your podcast and act like it was not that big a deal, that then I jumped and ended up on Men's Health and Dancing with the Stars and everything was great. No, I struggled. I struggled hard. And then I went through a long phase of denial where I didn't acknowledge what I was going through. Uh, I did eventually cut out a lot of the negative things that was happening, the bad eating, the drinking, the self-medicating. And I started fitness again, and that built a lot. And that was a huge help for me. Fitness is such a passion for me. Like I'm this close to just going door to door and asking people, have you accepted fitness into your life today? Like it is a huge thing for me. But I will also admit that, not to jump too far ahead, the the success I've had has been because of my kids and determination, and they outweigh my fears. But this past year, 2023, have really dove deep into my mental health and I am getting much more out of it now. In fact, I'm 42. I'm probably in the best shape of my life. And it's because I've always worked out. I've always eaten good, but now I'm taking care of this. And it
Mhm.
really just affects everything, just like you would imagine. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like you don't need to be told by a scientist or a guru or anything to say that this controls all of this. And it
right.
does. And it goes with not just with fitness and health. This is true with life in general.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, your life took obviously an unexpected turn, going through a traumatic experience like that and to come out on the other side of those experiences and be better because of it. That takes a heck of a mindset, and probably a
It
mindset shift. And you had to probably learn that. How were you able to
Yes.
do that? And, kind of where'd you find your strength at that time?
You know what? You said something just a second ago to learn that. That is exactly what I had to do. I didn't realize it initially how much I was learning as I was evolving and changing. I mentioned my kids. When I got injured, uh, and then moved back home. I had one son that was a year old when I was injured. And right after I was injured, I had two more children. And this is when I was deep in my depression and my struggles. And that was a second marriage I rushed into. It didn't work out. We co-parent good. That's all important. But I realized one day that I was setting the example for my children. As a parent, you can talk to your kids till you're blue in the face. They become what they see. It's just like, Bo, I'm sure there's times I know I've woken up before and thought, holy crap, I'm just like my father. Like, it just happens.
Yep.
But with that, I realize I'm setting the example for how to be a man, how to be a person, how to live in a relationship, how to be a father, how to be in society. And I was not setting a good example for my children. Now, when I tell people this, I say that, yeah, I realized that there was something that was stronger, and I used that because I still messed up. I still made mistakes. But every time I screwed up and fell flat on my face, it was the thought of my kids that drove me. Because I tell people all the time that in life, look, we all hit obstacles. You've hit them. I've hit them. My kids have experienced them. They happen throughout life. And too often, average people eventually hit an obstacle and they say, that's it. I'm done. This is where I'm going to stop. I'm going to live in this world. But exceptional people, those who want more out of life, find a way to go over, around, under, or through that obstacle. And I think that's important. And a lot of times it's about finding things that are more important than your fears. And for me, it's always been my children. Now, everyone has something different, but for me, it's been my children that drive me to do everything.
Yeah. It, being a dad, I've got a almost 6-year-old and a 1-year-old. And, it's funny how you just find a new purpose. You put things that's used to be important to you, on the back burner. And,
Yes.
it's crazy how it just naturally motivates you. And, if you love your kids, which I hope everybody does, it's a dad.
Well,
But
I mean, with that, I think that it's fair to say, because I'd want the listeners out there to know that not all of us are know, and this is something that I've learned personally. Not all of us were raised knowing how to be a good parent.
right.
And nothing against like my parents. They had a rough upbringing and it flows down and somebody has to break that. And I'm doing that with my children. But at the same time, I'm sure at the beginning, I mean, and there is a lot of data out there that there's a lot of struggles that children of combat veterans, they struggle.
Hmm.
So I'm sure I've put a lot of stress on my children when they were younger, and I'm sure I still do now. But because of that, one, I always try to put them first because it's easy to get distracted. I mean, that happens. I'm sure I've done it. You've done it. We do it. It happens. And then just try to bring it back. But another thing, I feel like I have to say this as parents. We have to, as our kids get older, I have teenagers now. I have 19, 16, 14, and then a 15-month-old. But the older kids are in therapy, not because they think they need it. In fact, my daughter was like, I don't need therapy. I was like, this is why you need to go, because I want you to be comfortable as you get older. If things happen, you know where you can go and talk to somebody. But then also, I know that they're going to find things that may be affected by me in their lives. And that's a little side note. I just want to say, because I know I put a lot of pressure on myself as a parent. I'm sure you do as well, Bo. We think, are we doing it right? And no one really knows how to do it. We're all just trying to figure it out. And it really just comes down to what you said, Bo. Just love your kids. That's
Hmm.
all we can do. That's
Yep.
all we can really do.
You were obviously in the limelight, still are to an extent. When you were on everybody's TV screens, or even now, what do you think is one thing that comes to mind that people misunderstand about you?
I love you asked that question, Bo, because then that gives me a chance to mention my book. I wrote a book, Living with No Excuses. And that book, I wrote it. It was hard to write. I hired a girl to help me write it, and it was perfect because she knew how to ask the right questions. See, the book, what people saw on TV was they heard the story of a veteran joined the military after 9/11, got blown up, lost two limbs, started working out, started running races, marathons, mountain climbing, was on the cover of Men's Health, went on Dance with the Stars. Holy crap, this guy is amazing. That is not the truth, even close. Did I get blown up? Yes. Did I struggle? That's what's important. Those struggles, that's what's in the book. Those ups and downs. There's an entire chapter dedicated to me. Spent 10 days in the county jail. I'm not proud of that, but it's a real story. These are real things that happen. And since Dancing with the Stars, I've struggled. It's like here I was. I thought I'm on the high life. I'm living the dream. And I found out, no, I was just as lost. And in fact, it was when COVID happened and everything stopped that I had a chance to step back. First, I drank a lot, like so many people. And then I reeled that in. It was like, what am I doing? What am I doing with myself? And I had to go back to thinking about what am I teaching my children? Because here it'd been several years where that thought process is kind of just, it fades away and you have to bring it back.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was on TV, I think that it was a huge honor. The amount of people that reached out to me, people with disabilities, people that have struggled with depression, veterans, people who were inspired to get into shape, all these different things were amazing. But I felt like so much was missing, and that was the struggle. So I shared that in my book. My social media has transitioned to where I am so open about mental health. It's probably driving people close to me crazy, but it's where my passion is right now. And I'm getting such a great experience from it that I just want to share it with everybody.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. You're getting the experience while also helping other people. That's kind of why I started this podcast. I wanted to learn from people, get better myself, but I also wanted to, if I can help other people as well at the same time,
Yeah.
that's a win-win. So,
Oh, every time I've gotten the opportunity to be on stage, when I've had people bring me in, I love it that at the end, if they say they've appreciated it, they've got something out of it, but what they don't realize is how much I'm getting out of it. When I'm
mhm,
on stage, I speak from the heart. Been on stage and said things and didn't realize it until I said it and was like, wow, okay, that's what I'm thinking. That's how I feel. And I love that. I love being that kind of speaker. There's different kinds of speakers. There's kinds of speakers that I wish I was, but I'm not. But I'm more that conversational. You're going to feel like you're right there with me. And I'm a storyteller and I love to share things and be personable.
mhm.
And when I get to do that, that's healing for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Who would you say has been your biggest influence over the course of your life?
This is going to, you know, the biggest influence over my life has probably been, and it hasn't even been the entire time, and this is going to sound crazy, but it is my children. You know what I mean? Like, I remember being younger and thinking, okay, I want to be successful so I can do XYZ and take care of a family. Now, then that ventures off different times, but that was something that's always driven me. And like, I have another child. I have a 15-month-old. I'm 42. I love my kids. You know what I mean? And they drive me to be the best person I can be. In fact, this past year and where I'm at with mental health now happened because I was inspired by my wife and by my children to better myself because I want to be the best for them I can be. So, I mean, I know that sounds like a corny answer, but it is the wholehearted truth. But then also, my father, when he was 18, was working in a plant and he lost his left hand. I've grown up with a father with one hand who's done construction, room additions, plumbing, room additions, siding. We've done it. He's taught me with one hand. So when I got injured, oh man, all my focus went to him. We
Mhm,
shared things that we never talked about before because then we had this common ground. So
mhm.
he's been a big influence towards me as well.
Yeah. So switching gears a little bit here, I want to talk about that mantra that you have really based your life around, living life with no excuses. First question: why do you think excuses are so easy for people to have and to use?
There's a comedian. I want to say it's Tom Papa or somebody. It doesn't matter who it is, but he talks about how enjoyable it is to cancel plans, and it's very relatable because we've all had that moment where it's like, oh, I'm looking forward to this, but I'm not against it if it cancels. The thing like that
Right.
just opens up my day. Well, excuses are built in way of canceling plans. I think that we have a tendency of finding a way of enjoying it and accepting it and saying, hey, no, I'm not going to call him out, but I have one of my children, an amazing kid, very smart, very successful, going to graduate a year early, 2 years of college already knocked out, wants to be a doctor, very successful, but he has this tendency to always have an excuse. Always. And he doesn't think he's giving an excuse. He thinks he's just explaining what's happening. You know what I mean? And it doesn't, and what I worry, what I've tried to explain to him is, it's not that he's explaining to me what's going on and it sounds like an excuse. I don't want him to be doing that to himself, because what I hear is him telling himself reasons why something didn't work, instead of saying, okay, this didn't work. What am I going to do to fix it? You know what I mean? Because I don't hear enough of that from him. And it's hard you can't just force that on somebody,
Right.
but it is a way of saying, one, people don't want to hear it. It's the cold hard truth, unless you're with someone who truly says, let's sit down and talk openly. But if you're just out passing somebody on the street, they don't want to hear it, and they don't want to hear you complain. Now,
Mm-hmm.
there's a give and a take, because with mental health, you have to be able to open up. You have to be able to share. And I was thinking about it the other day at one of my kids' basketball games. I was at my daughter's basketball game, and one of the girls was getting stressed out. She was getting, you could see it on her face, and then she fell, her leg was hurting, and you could just see it all over her, and then she started to look like she was on breakdown. And I remember afterwards, I told the girls, I was like, look, there's a time and a place. When you're on the court, look, the other team is who you're up against. Don't let them see your weakness. You got to be stone cold. But if something happens, don't be afraid to step off the court and take care of what needs to be taken care of. You know what I mean? There's a time and
Mm-hmm.
a place. And I think that's hard to really figure out, because you don't want to be this hard-nosed person, but then at the same time, you got to be willing to be like, just like, hey, when you're in the gym working out, or you're at practice pushing yourself, that's where it hurts. That's where you sweat. And then there's recovery. Recovery is where your muscles rebuild, your mind rebuilds. You take care of all those things that are bothering you. Hey, sometimes a good cry is good recovery.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not above that. So this podcast is kind of geared toward people who are leaders or they aspire to be leaders. And, a good leader does not make excuses, and they don't want to hear those. They lead making excuses. When I think about, in my personal realm, uh, when I think about making excuses, I think about a lack of ownership um,
Mm-hmm.
from that person, whether that's a mistake they've made and they're trying to cover up for it, or maybe a standard that they didn't live up to. Talk a little bit about the importance of taking ownership of yourself and kind of leading from within.
Yeah, you know what? Well, I love that you said leading from within, because I was just about to go into, as a leader, leadership isn't something you turn on and off. It's
Right.
something that it is what it is. You're a leader in public. You're a leader at your house. You're a leader at work. You're a leader on your team, whatever it is. Now, being a leader doesn't mean you're the only one that's speaking up and bossing people around. Some leaders know when to step back, when to be quiet, when to listen. But again, a leader is a leader all the time. So sometimes, hey, being that leader at home is listening and paying attention, but you're still the leader. When I say being a leader at home, being a leader at work, being a leader, that means leading by example. Look, don't be that person that sits around telling people, do this, do that. Get out there and do it. Show them how to do it. Because one, it's going to show them how to do it. And two, it's going to give them the motivation and encouragement to do it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
When they see it, they can do it. And as leaders, we have to always be thinking that way. What example am I setting? Look, I'm missing an arm and a leg. I stand out in public. And that's a good thing, because I use that to my advantage. I know if I walk into a gas station and there's some little kids, they're going to look at me because I missed arm or leg. Now, if I walk in that gas station acting a fool, cussing, being disrespectful, what example am I setting for those children? Because I've grabbed their attention already, but visually.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something that now I stand out, but you never know when you walk in if something They may notice your shirt, whatever. They see you, or someone in your life, in your family is watching you, and they always are. So if they're never turning it off, you should never turn it off. That's what true leadership is wanting to be successful to make sure everyone around you is successful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. So, we always hear the term control what you can control, uh, whether that's in sports, life, business, whatever. Um, One thing that I believe that we can control all the time is our attitude. And I believe attitude is a choice, and that's a choice that you make every day when you wake up. How important is it to have, how important is a positive attitude when overcoming obstacles and living that life with no excuses?
I think that, yeah, that is 100%. Like, your attitude is so impactful on your life because, look, I could have easily, when I got injured, decided, you know what? Hey, I'm just gonna just skate through life, whatever, not do anything. And no one would have really, like, they wouldn't have openly judged me. No one, because they would have said, I mean, look at the guy. He's missed an arm and a leg. Cut him some slack. You know what I mean? That could have happened. But you know what? I refuse to let that be the end of my story. You know what I mean? And so I choose to do something about it. Now, attitude, it is a choice, but I think there are some people that just, if they haven't taken care of their mental health, there's a lot of things that hold them down. That is a real thing. And I encourage people to go get the help. Just like if you're having problems with your heart, you'd see a cardiologist. So if you
Mm-hmm.
think you may be having something going on, go see. In fact, I encourage anyone listening, you should be seeing your primary care doctor at least every 6 months, and you should be seeing a mental health doctor at least the same amount. But with that being said, attitude, is like you always hear about an attitude adjustment, but it's, if you can find a way to slowly improve your attitude, it's just like exercising anything else. You start with a little bit of appreciation here, pushing a little bit further, and it just goes bigger and bigger. I noticed it as I found encouragement in my children to get back in shape. Again, I still screwed up, still messed up, but they kept coming back and they kept bringing me forward. And so they improved my attitude as well. So just like everything else, you can strengthen your attitude, and it takes time, but you got to start working on it.
Mm-hmm. So if I'm someone that feels like just in life in general, I'm at a disadvantage, whether that's, maybe I'm not qualified for the job I'm in, or I think I'm not. Um, Maybe I'm working in a new job that I haven't learned the ropes yet. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what advice would you give to that person to help them use their disadvantage, not as an excuse, but as motivation and inspiration to, really make it an advantage?
Oh, yeah. All right. So I'm going to use the example of fitness again. I'm sorry. This is, the world I
You're
live
good.
in. But I'm going to use the fitness example because just like me, missed arm and a leg, I got into fitness, and I'm proud of the fact that I missed arm and a leg, and I am fit. I'm 42, I'm injured, and I'm fit. I'm taking your excuses away. And I tell people, if I meet someone, oh, I have a thyroid problem, I have this, I have that. Hey, no, I respect that. I understand that. In fact, you getting into shape is more impressive than before I got injured. Look, naturally, it's easy for me. I got the body type of my mom's side of the family. My sisters, unfortunately, got my dad's side of the family. And, I benefited with just being super slim if I need to be. But that aside, someone that has more struggles, I feel like has more to be proud of. They have more to work for. They have more to earn, because if you take two people that go up the same route and they both become, we hope both of those people become successful, and one just happened to have an easier route. Hey, awesome for them. But this other person had struggles along the way. Hey, look, at the end of the day, this one's probably going to be the better leader because of the struggles they've had and in the experiences. So leadership, the knowledge, everything they have to share is going to be more important and critical. And that person has a lot more to be proud of. So whether it's fitness, work, whatever, if you're not qualified, hey, and here's another thing. 99% of the people that are in a position at work, worry that they're not qualified either. All right. So that is a thing that is your mind messing with you. So now learn to overcome that. And then if you feel like you're not qualified, well, then become qualified. In fact, become overqualified and own it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. I don't know if you're a Tony Robbins fan. I I read a little bit of his stuff every now and then, but he says that making excuses can almost always be traced back to one of three reasons. That's number one, fear. Number two, uncertainty, which I would kind of link with fear, or lack of purpose. And I want to talk about that fear piece a little bit. So many people are afraid of failure in life, and whether that's because they don't want their reputation to be tarnished or they're scared of the consequences from their failure. When your life drastically changed, did those negative thoughts come into your head? And what advice would you have for somebody who really struggles with that fear of failure?
Oh, those thoughts were in my head this morning. You know what I mean? Like those thoughts don't go away. It's just all about overcoming them. No, that fear, that goes back to like when I mentioned my kids. I say that all the time. Those obstacles we hit, you have to find something bigger than your fear. Or people talk about your why. I mean, all these things can sound corny, but there's a reason why you hear them all the time. All these different speakers and authors talk about it because it's true. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't have a purpose, if you don't know where you're going, look, yes, veterans have a high suicide rate, and NFL football players have a high suicide rate because if you've played football your entire life, then you're in your 30s and you're retired, it doesn't matter how much money you have. If you don't know where you're going anymore, your life feels like it's over, and people struggle with that. So you have to, and after my injury, I didn't know what I was doing. And so I was lost. And it wasn't until, my drive to be a better father. And then I started, my drive for fitness, or I had a race coming up. I found different things to motivate me, but it was my kids that had to be stronger than my fear. So I had to have that purpose, and you have to have something bigger than your fears. I shared with a group the other day that when I was in basic training to join the military, that was a struggle. But in my wall locker, I had a picture of a Hayabusa motorcycle because I was like, I'm going to buy that when I get out of here. Now, thankfully, I never bought it because it probably would have killed me. But that drove me. It did its purpose for 16 weeks while I was in basic training. I didn't even get the motorcycle, but that motorcycle got me through basic training.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it's just as simple as finding things that are bigger than that fear. When you come across something and you're like, oh, I don't know, I don't want to fail. Well, what do you have to lose if you do fail? What happens if you do succeed? And in fact, you have to remember, I told this to a group the other day, I've never failed. I've not always won, but I've never failed because if you decide if you learn from your failures or not. And
Mm-hmm.
I've had a lot of learning. I've learned a lot. So that's how I see it.
Yeah, I think we all. It's hard sometimes to look back on your failures and not be disgusted with yourself.
Oh yeah, that's like, well, that's just comparable. Yeah, I would compare that to think of a moment in middle school or high school that was really embarrassing for you. Like even now, like you probably could start sweating from it. Well, guess what? Nobody else in that time period even remember. You could go to someone who was standing next to you at that moment. Do you remember? They were like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? Because we do that to ourselves. We
Right.
do it to ourselves all the time. There's a part of our brain that is constantly saying, nope, you ain't got it. You can't do it. And some people's is louder than others. And it's all about controlling that and finding a
Mm-hmm.
way. And again, it goes back to mental health. So, but finding something stronger than your fear is going to help you do that.
Mm. You mentioned a little bit of the purpose piece. That's a topic that I'm in the world of education, and we always, whenever we have speakers come in, or the talking heads of education, quote unquote, they always talk about finding your why, using your why to drive you, your purpose. However, a lack of purpose can oftentimes be a reason that people make excuses. And my question is, what is Noah Galloway's purpose? And has your purpose always been the same throughout your life?
So right now, Noah Galloway's purpose is to be a husband and a father, priority one. I have my business, one of my big contracts, and I'm really excited about a contract that I went after and fought for, was being one of the faces of F45, which is functional fitness in 45 minutes. Um, and I jumped into that world because I love fitness and I want to spread health and fitness to as many people as I can. Now that means I'm not expecting people to have six pack abs or do crazy races like I've done or any of that stuff. No, I want to encourage as many people as I can, especially people that have never been introduced to health and fitness, to see that it is an option for them, that it's there. And another thing that I am doing that I am adamant about, and this is going to really surprise you, is mental health. Like, I know I haven't mentioned that in this podcast yet, but mental health is something that as I'm experiencing it, I'm sharing it on social media because I'm hoping it will impact someone else. So I feel like my place right now is being that leader, leading from the front for my family, and then for any people that come after that and spreading that. And just like with F45, I'm getting the opportunity to go and travel and spread that with other people. Now, has it changed? Oh, it changes constantly. You know, I always tell people just because you shoot for something out there doesn't mean that's where you're going to end up, but you got to have that target and see where it takes you. So it's like throughout my life, it has gone different places. There's been different things that I've needed. There's been times that I've been there to help other people. And there's times that I've realized, no, I need to step back and take care of me and my family alone. I can't do any of this right now. And
Mm-hmm.
so it constantly changes. But having that purpose, finding that purpose is important. But it doesn't have to be too far out. Because as I say that, I think about my 14-year-old daughter who's in eighth grade. And here it is, you know, her brother is 16, wants to be a doctor, and he's working towards it. She's 14, and I ask her, what do you want to be? She's not real sure. Well, I'm not giving her a hard time about that. I'm just like, well, let's think about short term. What is it you want to work towards? You know, so sometimes, hey, if someone can't come up with something way I hear, hey, those short terms are the way to get there and see what comes about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was actually a guest on a podcast the other day, and we talked about goal setting. And, Urban Meyer, like him or not, he talked about goal setting when he was at Ohio State. And basically, if you post this lofty goal on the whiteboard or whatever that everybody in the country is working toward, like win a national championship, that's not going to do you any good because there's nothing about how you're going to get there. And so
Oh, yeah.
he talked with his team about winning the moments throughout the game. When you're faced with you compare it to life. If you're faced with a daunting task or a thing that you have to do, when you think about it in your mind, you don't think, well, I got to do this. You can't just think about that. You got to think about the moments or the tasks or the mindsets that it takes to get to that goal. And I thought that was really good from him. But tell me a little bit about your No Excuses Charitable Fund. And side note here, I was scrolling through your Instagram the other day, and you mentioned a organization that I believe you guys are helping, but it's the Sheepdog Impact Assistance.
Impact assistance. Yes.
So, funny story. Well, not really a story, but I the school I work at is about 5 miles north of that Heroes Ranch that they have.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was kind of cool seeing you talk about them on your Instagram. But yeah, tell me a little about
Oh,
your charitable fund.
that's perfect. So the charitable fund, so as an injured veteran, it's been 18 years since I've been injured. I got injured, 2005. So I've got to experience the good and bad of nonprofits.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how it is. It's hard. There's so many out there. It's hard to break them down. Well, then I started, as I saw bad organizations, I started to really focus on the good ones. And I was like, you know what? I started my charitable fund to solely bring attention, awareness, and any money that comes to my charitable fund goes to these organizations. Sheepdog Impact Assistance is one of them. I love them because they work with our veterans and first responders. People, it's easy to forget first responders, police officers, paramedics, they're a smaller group of people. And when you're a smaller group, well, then there's less organizations out there for you. So
Mm-hmm.
sheepdog impact assistance working with veterans and first responders, because you have to think our law enforcement and our paramedics, it's not just about what you do, it's what you see, it's what you experience or what you couldn't do. And this affects people. So Sheepdog Impact Assistance has these events where they'll go places, but they have these camps that they like to refer to falling forward, where it's
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, here's the issues you have. Let's address them and talk about what we can do. And I think that is so impactful. It's not saying let's sweep this under a rug. Let's not do this. Let's address the problem and see what we can do to move forward with it. And I love that. And other organizations, Homes for Our Troops, build houses for injured veterans. 90 cents on every dollar goes to the veteran. That's hard to do in organizations. In fact, a lot of people, when I bring them up, I never heard of them because they don't spend a lot of money on pushing their name out. They know that if they go to an area and they build a home for a veteran, that word spreads in that area. And they've
Mm-hmm.
been very successful for a long time. And we still have a lot of veterans out there that could benefit from these homes that they can be completely accessible in. So it's a great organization. Then, of course, I also sponsor my local YMCA because my children used all the youth programs there, played
Mm-hmm.
sports. I have used fitness, like I said, for a lot of things in life. So my kids being active and other kids starting to be active at an early age, I think is critical for their growth and development. And, that's why I started the charitable fund. It started with, there's a board. My job's just to say, hey, send X amount of dollars to this nonprofit. As long as it's a nonprofit, they'll send it. And it's been amazing. And I love highlighting these amazing organizations.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, do you have any new projects or endeavors on the horizon for you?
There's a few things in the works. There is a script out there. To who knows, there might be a Noah Galloway movie one day. Fingers crossed, that would be awesome. In fact, there's a couple of production companies that want to have a conversation, some big name people. Apparently, a lot of people have production companies now. I mean, that's something that's exciting. Of course, I have nothing to do with that. All I can do is sit and wait like everyone else. Personally, I've got my oldest son is in basic training right now for the Coast Guard. He
Mm-hmm.
graduates on the 9th. My son Jack is the one that I told you that is graduating early. He wants to be a doctor. My daughter Ryan, she's in 8th grade. She's playing sports. She's doing amazing. She's flourishing. You know what I mean? She's 14. She's a teenage girl. There's been ups and downs, but she's doing really well. And then I have my baby. My wife Amanda and I got married a couple years ago, and we have our 15-month-old baby Matthew. And life is amazing. And then on top of that, me doing my mental health, working with F45. It's like I told Tom Dowd, the CEO, when I come at him and said I wanted him to pay me to go travel the world and work out of these classes, because when a guy missing an arm and a leg does it, it motivates people and it shows people that anyone can do it. Like as I was selling that to him, I really explained to him that I want to use F45 as a tool to spread my message. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? I love their workouts, so why not partner with them? And that's what we're doing. I love what they're doing. I've worked with Tom. I've worked with Mark Wahlberg as he's one of the owners now. So I'm really excited about this venture because fitness has been something. I have friends that think that this would be a horrible job. They would never want, you couldn't pay them to work out. But for me, I'm getting paid to travel the world and work out and then also share my story and meet different people. And it is a dream come true. So life
Yeah,
is amazing for me right now, Bo.
that's great. That's good to hear. So, where can my listeners go to find out more about you or the work you do?
Yeah, website, noahgalloway.com. You can find me on social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. I'm on TikTok. I don't know what I'm doing on there. It's just kind of there. I use it to make videos and I'll post things
Ask your
there.
daughter. Ask your daughter.
Yeah, yeah. I don't even know if do they use that or is it Snapchat still? I don't
No, it's
know.
probably both. I don't know.
Yeah, but I am on TikTok, but like the Instagram and Facebook, I am a certified account if you go and find it. Or I think you can find it from my website. And on my website, I just announced the other day, I finally have some shirts, some Living with No Excuses, different shirts have different things. So if anybody's interested, go in there and check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely need a shirt. I'll go get one. Okay. Last thing here. I got some rapid fire questions for you.
All right, let's go.
What would be a book that you would recommend to my listeners?
The Body Keeps the Score. It's a mental health book. Uh, Yeah, The Body Keeps the Score is a really good book that I've just finished a little while ago, and it talks a lot about mental health and different ways of dealing with mental health. So I think for someone that's interested, it's a great book to get you caught up to speed on different things that are going on in the mental health world.
Yeah. What kind of guy is Tom Bergeron off camera?
Hilarious. Tom Bergeron is all right. So before we go live, we do the entire episode, full costume, whatever, do everything. And Tom he doesn't talk about the things he's going to talk about when it's live. He makes jokes. He can be, you know, he'll say things that you're like, how do you not accidentally say that live? But he is so funny and so quick witted because he can just throw things out. And I'm going to tell you a great story about Tom. I ended up making it to the finale, and even my dance partner was not expecting that to happen. She'd never been in the finale. And then all of a sudden it was like, she's like, oh my God, I think we're going to end up in the finale. You know what I mean? So when we did, right before I did my last dance, Tom ran over to me and talked to me real quick and then left. And then we did our dance and all this happened. Then afterwards, all these producers came up to me. They're like, hey, Noah, come here, come here. They're like, what did Tom say to you before you danced? Like, they were all like, I was like, why are y'all so intrigued by this? They're like, what did he say? He said, you've got this, Noah. You're doing amazing. You can win this. And they all looked at each other and they said, Tom has never chosen sides. Tom is always he's the host. He loves everyone. Not that he didn't love everybody on the show, but he took a liking to me and he shared that, and it really impressed all the producers. But he is just an amazing man to be around because he's fun, he's quick-witted, but also he just has a big heart and just a great person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you asked about Tom because I don't always get to share that story about him coming up and saying that and how everyone on the show was like, what just happened? You know?
Yeah, that's awesome. I know him, when I first started watching him, he was on America's Funniest Home Videos, and he was hilarious on there. And I was always, it doesn't surprise me. You can kind of tell watching people on TV, you can tell kind of what kind of person they are. And
Yeah.
I always thought Tom was a good dude just watching him on TV.
You know what? From what I've experienced on and off camera, that time during Dance with the Stars, I would put my money on, what you assume he is who he is all the time, because that's what I've experienced.
This is a deeper question. You can get as political or non-political as you want, but if you had a magic wand that you could just wave and change one thing about the United States of America right now, what would that be?
Our mental health. And I think that, I think both sides of the political spectrum can agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that doesn't get political. I think that we all need to just be more educated on mental health. I think that what happened during COVID really opened a lot of our eyes to what's going on with mental health. It's brought up the conversation, the discussion. And I think over time, it's going to hopefully evolve. Not hopefully, I'm going to say, no, it just takes time. We're a country that's always changing, ups and downs, and I feel confident that's what we're going to keep doing. But what I want to see is better mental health in each person.
Mm-hmm.
Each person needs to be aware of it and working on it. And I hope that these next generations after us will be the generations that will do it. And another thing I'm going to put out there to the universe is I think that veterans are going to be the leader in really good mental health. I think that I say that because when I look back in the 70s, colleges started offering business classes. That evolved out of the military. They realized that what the setup was having in the military was so well done that evolved into the business world. Well, I think as veterans, we're not the only ones who suffer from PTSD. We're not the only ones who have trauma in our lives, whether it be from childhood or as adults. but we are a prime example of those who have experienced real life trauma, and we can go through and experience the mental health and see the evolution and the change. And I'm going to give one example of that. My mother and my uncle Johnny, who's a Vietnam veteran, are brother and sister. They grew up in the same household. I'm not going to go into it, rest my grandfather's soul, but he was a hard man, and that kind of affected the lifestyle. But when I look at my mother and I look at my Uncle Johnny, now my Uncle Johnny has dealt with, as a combat veteran, has dealt with all kind of coming from Vietnam, a lot of drug problems, all these different things he has had, but he's a different man now in his 70s. And I look at him, I look at my mother, and I see more change in my uncle because he has at least experienced some mental health.
Mm-hmm.
My mother has experienced none. But even though my uncle, whether it be through the vet center, through the VA, he has some horror stories too. But he is someone who, and I think that I'm very active in my VA, and there's been a lot of changes, a lot more towards mental health. And I think that over time, that's going to change. And I want to see it happen throughout society, but I want to see veterans lead that charge and saying, hey, this worked for me, it can work for you. Because that's what I'm trying to do personally.
Mm-hmm.
I have my experience. Look, some of my trauma isn't all from the military. I've worked my way up, and I'm going through different stages of my life. And my counselor said something the other day that was perfect. He said, if you're living, you're experiencing trauma. And that's true. I could experience trauma later today. You know what I mean? So it's always happening. And I want to see those of us that are experiencing it to be open and share it and lead by example, and more people follow. And in the future, we'll see a country that is more stable and doing much better with our mental health.
Yeah. So good. So good. Last question here. And it's kind of turned into my signature question or whatever you want to call it. But at the end of all this, we talk about legacy a little bit, but what do you want your legacy to be? And what do you want people to remember you by?
That's a really good question, because I feel like everyone should have an answer to that. It doesn't matter if you're in the public eye or not. We all leave something. And we should think about that, because if what we're going to leave, if we realize, oh no, isn't positive, then we need to make a change. And that alone is something I want to leave behind as my legacy, that I was always trying to improve myself and encourage others to improve themselves, to live healthy, to live a life of not suffering, but living as healthy as you can. I'd said before, I don't expect people to look like I do or to do the races I've done or any of that stuff, but there's no excuse why a person can't not drink that soda. You know what I mean? Not live off candy, to eat healthy, drink water, to see the doctor, to take care of themselves. Try to catch things before they become a problem and they can't be solved. The legacy I want to leave is through my children, of saying that, hey, live life to the best, but make sure you take care of yourself and take care of everyone around you.
Really good. Well, Noah, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your insight on just life. I think everybody can learn from somebody like you, and I look forward to following you going forward, and hopefully my listeners can take a few tidbits out of this and apply it to their everyday lives. And good luck to you, and thanks for coming on, man.
Well, Bo, thank you so much for inviting me on. It means a lot. And, I hate that I had to take it from my truck. I'm on the go all the time. And I feel like I have to explain that this is my work truck. Every time I do a call, I'm like, dang it, I should do something about this headliner. But hey, I'm just an Alabama boy, just doing my thing, driving my pickup truck.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, man. Well, I appreciate it again, and good luck to you.
Thank you, Bo. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Lead to Win podcast. If you're listening this week, make sure to drop a rating on whatever app you're listening on. I'd love to hear from listeners and make this podcast even more relevant to you. Also, make sure to follow the Lead to Win podcast on social media. We're on Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Give us a follow and feel free to share the content. Again, thanks for listening this week. I'm your host, Bo Bergen. See you next Tuesday.